Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. How's everyone doing? My name is Mark Rodriguez, and I teach music and audio production here at El Camino. I'd like to take this moment to thank a number of people that made this event possible. EIPMA and President Bernard Weiser. El Camino Real Charter High School, Mr. Husty, Mr. Alba, Mr. Bennett. Thank you for you guys and your support. Mr. Hudson and his stage crew for the lighting and production design, thank you so much. My stage crew, Kate Rudy and AGF Media Services, thank you to them. Chef Gamis for hosting the luncheon that we'll be attending after this event. And thank you to all of you guys here in attendance and on the live stream webinar. Thank you guys so much. Without further ado, I'd like to present to you guys our moderator, a re-recording mixer for shows such as Loki and Echo, Miss Karol Urban.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming out and giving us a piece of your day so that we can present. Welcome to the panel on careers in entertainment, sound, and film, brought to you by EIPMA, which is the Entertainment Industry Professional Mentoring Alliance, which is looking to reach out and create bonds with professionals and help to find the next generation. So thank you for coming and lending us your focus. You might be the next generation. My name is Karol Urban, and I am a re-recording mixer, a sound editor. I have worked on things like Loki and Echo, and I have two things recently out, Dope Thief and Government Cheese on Apple TV Plus, and Say Nothing. I'm here to moderate today's conversation, but also to introduce to you this incredible panel. You've absolutely experienced their work before, even if you haven't realized it. So let me introduce you first to Tony Lamberti, CAS, a sound designer. A few credits that we can denote to Tony Lamberti's sonic vision can be heard in Spiderman, Ferrari, and Django Unchained. So, you know. Yeah. Next, we have a picture editor, Dorian Harris ACE. She is a master picture editor known for shaping character and tension in shows like The Outsider, Bosch, and Hit and Run. And finally, we have Agatha Warren, who is a producer. She's actually a powerhouse producer. I'm going to go ahead and put powerhouse in front of it. Behind hits like Prison Break, Reacher, and Roswell, she blends storytelling and really has rock-solid production chops. I'm really looking forward to hearing from her today. So I was thinking, and it just occurred to me before I came up today, that maybe we should actually talk a little bit about how we kind of see the function of our jobs before we get into how we started our jobs and got into them and how we began our careers, just to kind of separate those items for you guys so that you can understand. I'm a re-recording mixer, and so is Tony, by the way. Like, I feel like I'm really taking this away. And I kind of see my job as taking a montage of materials, Foley, which is like little footsteps and hand touches, and people touching their glasses. They record all that specifically so that you hear it. Don't think that's on accident. That didn't happen. We did that. There's beautiful atmospheres, beautiful sound effects, music, and dialogue recorded on the day of the set, and also something called ADR, which is dialogue recorded later that's inserted in and matched. It is the job of the re-recording mixer to kind of marriage all those things together and make a beautiful collage that tells the narrative. But Tony's not only a re-recording mixer, he is also a sound designer, so I'm going to let you take that angle.
Thank you very much. So one of the functions of a sound designer is to sit with the filmmakers, the director, the picture editor, and go through the movie, sit down, spot everything. You run the movie from beginning to end and spend a lot of time talking about what the sonic vision is for the film, what special sound effects may be needed, what are the problem areas that need to be addressed, and any particular film, and then spend time designing, combining sounds, going and looking, either recording or I have a vast library of sounds that I've accumulated over 30 years of doing this that go and I can go through and find things that will fit the picture and fit the narrative, like Karol was saying, and help tell the story that the filmmakers want to tell. So that's part of the sound designer's function, is to take visuals and put sound to them that really help take the audience into the world that we're viewing.
And Dorian, how would you describe the picture editing? What is picture editing?
Picture editing is a process that starts usually very often on the first or the day before shooting starts. So the picture editor is involved in ingesting all the material from the previous day's shoot into now digitally through a network, and then we work by ourselves while the film is being shot every day, cutting it down to its script running length, more or less. So they may shoot sometimes upwards of 7 or 8 hours of picture every day on the set, and the editor then hones that down to 2 or 3 minutes a day. And then when they're finished shooting, we work with the director to come up with a director's cut, which more or less has the show running about 2 or 3 minutes over its eventual running time. I primarily work in streaming television and network television. And then we work with the producers and the showrunners and executives at whoever is paying for this project to bring it to a lock. And a lock is its final picture length, which then goes back to these guys for all the sound work. Not to say that the picture editors don't work on sound, because we do. That's a bit of a misnomer. We really craft a very detailed blueprint for the sound editors, sound team, re-recording mixers to work off of. But picture editors primarily work with directors and producers to come up with what you see in the final version, as opposed to what you hear.
And Agatha, take us home. What do you do as the producer?
Hello, everybody. So as the producer, I actually am the person that deals with kind of everybody on the studio side, on the network side, so Amazon, Netflix, on the creative side with our showrunners, and then also working with editors, and then also towards the end with the mix. And basically, we take it from script, and it's the first draft of a script, and then it goes through multiple iterations until they finally get to the production script, which the studio and Netflix will say, this is it, this is what we want. We go through shooting, and then we go through editing, and it goes through many iterations. So Dorian she would do her editor's cut, and then it goes to the director. The director does their cut. Then it goes to the producers, they do their cut, then it goes to studio, and then ultimately to the network. And so once everyone has agreed that, you know what, this is the show that we want to air, then we get into it. So we meet with the composer and we say, all right, in this scene, we want it light and funny, or on, this other scene, I want to feel the drama. I want to feel, I want to cry here. And so the composer comes up with that. Once we've gotten pretty picture and done visual effects and re-recorded dialogue, then we bring it to these guys over here on a mix stage and then put it together. And then my job then after that is basically seeing it all the way through until it launches. So it's a lot of, I work in television, so it is trying to manage multiple episodes at the same time, but it's pretty gratifying once that show gets on the air. And then when people come up to you and say, oh my God, I love Reacher, I'll stream that, and so does my dad. I mean, that's the most gratifying part.
I love it. And so tell me a little bit about how each one of you were inspired to get into your field. Like, what do you think launched that spark that's like, you know what, I'm going to be a sound designer, I'm going to be a picture editor, you know what, producing?
Well, for me, I grew up as a musician. I was from a very young age, was in band from elementary all the way through the end of high school, and then and towards the end of high school, I got really into recording technology. I wanted to figure out how my favorite records were made. At the time, I thought I wanted to be a record engineer, and so I really wanted to figure that out. And so I went to a couple different schools, ended up at Berklee College of Music in Boston, and from there, kind of realized that the way I was actually going to make a living was through post-production, and because I saw a lot of people who were trying to make records and record bands and do all that kind of stuff, and they were having a tough time of it at the time, and so I was very fortunate to work for a studio before I got out of school, where they were doing post-production work during the day and recording bands at night, and that kind of evolved over time, and I learned a lot of those techniques in terms of working with the clients and all that kind of stuff. And then I had some friends who were working out here in LA at the time, and they were like, please come out to LA because we need people and we have more work than we know what to do with. And so I came out here and got in the union and just kind of evolved from there, and I've been doing it ever since.
What's your instrument?
I was a drummer.
Was a drummer. There's a lot of mixing drummers. There are, especially sound effects specific.
Yes, right. Yeah, it's a rhythm thing.
It's a rhythm thing.
It's a rhythm thing.
Exactly. Yeah. I myself was a pianist, but I went straight to post.
There you go.
Yeah, I went straight to post.
Awesome.
So yeah, but for me, my obsession was I'm a film nut. Yeah, so that made sense.
Yeah, it made sense.
Yeah. How about you, Dorian? How did you get into picture editorial?
Well, I took a very circuitous route, I think. I grew up in New Jersey, and I went to college in New Jersey as an English major, but I rapidly became a filmmaking major, or a film theory and criticism major, when I found that I could spend a lot of time watching movies every day and occasionally writing a paper and getting a degree. So which I don't want to minimize film school or film theory and criticism. It was just something that I really found myself gravitating to, even though I hadn't grown up in a filmmaking, film watching kind of family. So I moved to New York City and started looking for work in the film business. And I don't know if you guys know it, but New York was not exactly the center of the movie industry at that time, and I started working in advertising as a messenger for a company that was editing commercials, like Pampers and cereal commercials and whatnot. So a messenger is exactly what it sounds like. I was taking film back and forth from the editing room to the advertising agencies, and eventually the owners of this editing company put me in the union as an apprentice, and I started to learn how to be a film apprentice and then a film assistant. And then I moved from there to documentaries in New York as well, working for PBS and NBC. And then I had always really, my goal was always to work in narrative filmmaking. So there was a very small, compared to LA, group of narrative filmmakers in New York, directors, Martin Scorsese, Woody Allen, the Coen brothers, Francis Coppola occasionally. I started to work in feature films in New York City as an assistant, and then as an ADR editor for a few years. And then in the 90s, before any of you were born, I moved to Los Angeles and started working out here in independent features and eventually in network television and then streaming television and now network television again. So yeah, it was a long road, but I'm, very gratifying one, and I've met a lot of people. I've worked with everyone here on this stage. Karol and I are board members for the Motion Picture Editors Guild, and I'm also on the board for American Cinema Editors.
And last but not least,
My turn.
The other way around.
I went to Chino High School. I was an Inland Empire girl, so I grew up in Southern California. And in high school, I actually really liked photography, and I thought, well, let me launch this into filmmaking. Let me see if I want to be a cinematographer, director of photography, and went to college, and I hated it. I did not like it. In my film school, we had to do multiple roles. So one project, you had to be the director. In another project, you had to be the actor. All things that I did not like. And so that's how I found editing and post-production. I then got an internship over at Touchstone Features, which is a Disney company. I don't think they're around anymore. But did an internship there, and then I got my first PA job on a sitcom at Warner Brothers, and I was a PA. I drove around in a little golf cart, and at the time I delivered VHS tapes to executives and just did the work, and then really discovered that I didn't like editing so much, and I did like the producing aspect, because you do touch a lot of people. You are having to deal with budget, and you're having to do with scheduling, as well as the creatives, and all of those things that kind of sparked some interest in me. So I just moved on and kept going from show to show, because that's one thing that this business does not guarantee, is that a show that you're on is going to go on forever. It always ends, even if it's, well, The Simpsons has been around for...
I was going to say, I worked on Grey's Anatomy. That's still rolling.
But
It's rare.
But for the most part, I was getting on shows that were canceled after 6 episodes. And so you do get your chops doing that, because then you're like, oh my gosh, where's my next job going to come from? And you realize that you've got to make your connections, and you've got to, touch people so that they remember you in some way, so that you can get your next job. So that I did for many years, and then finally got into producing, got that first associate producer title, and then I did a project years ago called Prison Break, and a lot of the writers from that project actually went on to create their own shows, and so, but over 5-10 years, just knowing where they landed, what projects they're working on. I've worked with each one of them separately on different projects. So when they say it's who you know in this business, it really is. It's who you know to get another connection, to get your next job, or even just to make things easier for you as you move along in your career.
That's excellent. Actually, that leads to my next question, and something that I would like to point out in hopes that you observe, which is nobody had a straight line to where they ended up. Everybody tried something, kind of had an idea, and then it kind of whittles itself naturally down, and you find your path. So I wanted to reiterate that to anyone who's new coming into the industry, that you're likely not to find that job and then be good. This isn't that type of industry. It's a gig economy. In fact, I would say part of the beauty of the job and beauty of this career field is that each gig has its own unique characteristics and adventures. So
and you can try a lot of things. You can try a lot of things and not like it, and that may lead you to something else.
Absolutely. And the more you try, it gives you, and I think, Agatha, you'd probably agree with this, that it gives you an understanding, a wider understanding of the people working next to you in those positions that maybe they weren't right for you, but you having that experience of kind of going through it or working with those individuals and being collaborative, it really, that is a huge advantage to you moving forward.
Absolutely. I mean, even the people that you've met, there was one PA that I was working with who worked in accounting, and he was terrible. Actually, he was not very detailed like that, and now he's creating shows. I mean, it's and so to even just watch people around you that are also finding their way and maybe the details in post-production isn't something that someone is predisposed to, but they're super creative and they want to write. And you just watch other people's careers and you do kind of find your own niche.
And I think it also points to another great thing that I was thinking of listening to Agatha was that, it's a long time horizon. You meet a lot of people along the way, and it's over a long amount of time where you make all these connections and things lead to other things that you now have this big pool of people that that you can collaborate with, and that is a great thing.
Absolutely. I always used to say, I remember my husband also works in the field, and I remember saying to him when we started out that we were entering a great wonderland, and that's what it is, like little adventures and side quests and all kinds of craziness. Excellent. So tell me a little bit about, and you touched on this a little bit, Agatha, but I guess we'll start with Dorian. Dorian, could you touch a little bit on kind of the characteristics that are needed to really be successful as a picture editor?
Yeah, it takes a lot of discretion and a kind of political, meaning handling the environment in a room, of negotiating between creatives, directors and producers, for sure, and diplomacy as well. So you have to articulate your craft at the same time you're serving a lot of different interests. So it's a fine line, and it takes a lot of balance and patience to be in a situation in a room with the people that are there to see their vision come to light. So, and it's also handling your crew, your assistants, and the people that are working for you to also to teach them the skills that they will need to become a person that's going to be able to enter your chair, take your chair, take your position, or grow into the role of being an editor. So at the same time as you're serving this purpose, you're also mentoring the people coming up after you. Does that answer the
How about you,
question?
Tony?
It's very similar to what Dorian was saying, but on the sound side, in terms of doing the design part of it, which is things that are happening, creative parts that are happening early on in the process, it's carving out time to make sure that you can focus on what you need to focus on, so that by the time you do get to the mixing part of it, that you've addressed the filmmakers' intentions, that you've put things in front of them and had them sign off on things, so that there's no surprises by the time you get to the mix. It's just, now let's mix it and make it sound great, and a lot of the creative decision-making process, you've carved out time for that, you've put it in front of the clients, you've had them sign off on it, give their input on it, and maybe there's a bit of back and forth with that. And then also, like Dorian was saying, managing other people or interacting with the crew around you to make sure that everybody's on the same page, so that the mix goes as smooth as possible.
I tease often that our job as a re-recording mixer is to make sure everybody's equally dissatisfied. Because everybody comes in kind of an advocate for what it is that they're adding to the mix. And it's the mixer's job to kind of be an air traffic control person and make sure that everybody gets their moment when it is most appropriate and makes the best narrative end game.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very, very true.
Again, back to the politics, yeah, and getting along with people. That's wonderful. Now, what would you say is the most rewarding aspect of doing what you do? Like, is it worth it? I mean, it's a gig. You're always looking for a job. You're dealing with a bunch of different people. Things are a little nutty. It's a bit unstable. It is a journey. What's the cool thing? What brings you back? Let's start with Agatha.
Because it ends and then a new project starts. It's like a blessing and a curse, honestly, because you'll find a project that these people are so great to work with, and you want it to go on, and then the show gets canceled. But you develop your own skills the more projects you work on. The people that you meet, some of them are really cool and really talented and inspire you to be better. even when you've been doing this for 20, 25 years and you think you've seen it all, and then you encounter a director that inspires something in you if you're a storyteller. And then the other rewarding thing is finally getting to see it on the air. I mean, it's even if it's a show that most people have never even heard of, if you can go on Netflix and you can look it up, it's like, all right, there it is. Like that, I worked on that, and that's pretty rewarding, and kind of a little bragging rights a little bit for that.
How about you, Dorian? What's the most rewarding aspect of what you do?
I would have to say the storytelling aspect of being a picture editor is the most rewarding for me. It's what drew me to the field of editing as opposed to photography, being a camera person, director of photography, or even being, a sound editor. For me, the real gratification has always been the script and how what was actually shot is best utilized to tell that story. And the directors that you work with who are, great storytellers, learning from them. And picture editing has a lot to do with actors' performance, and it's not anything that you can ever overlook. So every day in picture editing, you are analyzing the performance of all the actors and being very critical to define the story through performance. So that for me is the most gratifying. And of course, seeing that in its completed form is the reward.
How many of you out here are actually in theater or do some type of performative acting or anything like that? Anybody? Any hands? Excellent. So if you were to do, I guess, in front of the camera, the thing to know is that there's many, many takes. There's 2 to 3 minutes of a whole day of shooting, but there's someone looking so detailed at your performance. That's pretty fantastic, isn't it? Pretty amazing. Tony.
For me, it's getting to the end of some projects can be pretty grueling in terms of the hours or the schedule required to get there. And so when you finally make the final playback with the clients and everybody's signed off on it and they're everybody's happy with the final outcome, that's where I find it most gratifying. Also, being in certain screenings when you actually see the audience react to a screening of something you've worked on and they go absolutely crazy for it. That's really gratifying.
So this last question I really, really love, and then I will look for some questions amongst you guys. What is a piece of advice or a piece of wisdom that you really wish that someone had told you back in the day when you were looking to get into the field? Like, what was a gotcha that you were like, well, I really wish that somebody would have told me about X or Y? I'll start. The hours are insane, y'all. I'm not even gonna lie. Because it is a gig, when you get a gig, you work that gig and you get the job done. And sometimes that means crazy hours. Just because someone delivers you something late does not mean that you get more time to work on it. You need to learn to hustle and flow and do it with a smile and get along with everyone, whilst under sometimes an immense amount of pressure. It's still worth it. I mean, it's the best gig ever if you ask me. Like, I can't imagine doing anything else. But that's something that I wish somebody had really warned me about, that, if they need to have you work through a crazy holiday, there might be more money attached to it. There ought to be more money attached to it, but you might do that. That's what you're going to have to do if you're on that gig. What do you think, Tony?
I just did one with Karol's husband, Karate Kid Legends, which is coming out this weekend.
Yeah, that was a lot of hours.
So go see it, where they actually moved the schedule up on us by 3 or 4 weeks because they wanted to get a version out for Latin America, an international version. So we had to work 2 weeks of just insane hours.
Insane.
And she knows. And,
I didn't see him.
And but we got it done, and we made the deadline, got it done, and that's that's just one of those things. For me, it's that this career is a long time horizon, and I'll say it. I said it earlier, and I'll say it again: is nothing comes instantaneously. You got to work really hard, crazy hours, and it's going to ebb and flow on you. But over the course of many years and decades, even, you will be rewarded.
How about you, Dorian?
I will not talk anymore about the hours because I don't want to scare those of you in the audience who are considering.
It is worth it. If you love it, it's worth it. It's absolutely worth
yes.
it. Yeah.
The hours are grueling, and the days. I would say one thing that I would have liked to have known beforehand was that the technology would be changing. And I don't think that's anything that any of us could have foreseen, but I think, at least for me, and probably for you as well, even you, we all started in film when it was something we could touch, we could see it, we could, it was a very manual job. We did a lot with our hands. I won't bore you with how labor intensive it was, but it was also very, very gratifying. But most of us here learned how to do our craft when film was shot on film. And it was a hard road for many people in the business when that changed to digital editing. Now we've been editing on computers for a good, 20 years.
25 years.
Yeah, 20, 25 years. And now there's a new technology, which you guys know more about than we do, AI, and that is going to have a huge impact on our business, and I don't think we can even anticipate what kind of impact that will really be. So I think that's something that I would have liked to have known. And you just have to stay open with it and adjust to it and learn as much as you can, as quickly as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And styles change, so like plugins change and methodology changes and just changes. It always changes. How about you, Agatha?
To go along a little bit on the technology, visual effects, I don't think that you guys are aware of how many visual effect shots are actually in a TV show or movie. Even if it's not a Marvel movie where the visual effects are really apparent, it could be, a producer says, take out her fine lines a little bit. She's looking a little too old. Or maybe brighten her up a little bit. Beauty work, yes. That kind of stuff, again, back when we shot film, visual effects were not, on occasion you would run into them because you needed to. But it's now every single shot, it feels like. I mean, even if these wires here, so some producer may say, I don't like them, paint them out. And so the cost of doing it, the time to do it, and then you multiply that by an entire 55-minute show, and you've got a lot. And I think it's wonderful because it's given a lot of visual effects artists work. But I think also productions have leaned on it a little too much. And, rather than a boom mic where a boom operator tries to hide themselves so you can't see it, sometimes they just stand right there and they don't even attempt to hide themselves. And they're like, oh, you can just paint us out, right? And it's like, well, yeah, we can, but, that's going to be a $10,000 shot. So that kind of stuff was not something ever anticipated. It is now pretty much a way of life, and it's cool. But it would have been nice to kind of get a heads up. Now I think people entering the business, that's kind of all you know. Like you do have a dedicated visual effects person on your project just for things like that.
I'm always surprised when I get unfinished, like uncolor corrected. Like a lot of times when you start in sound, you'll get the picture sequence, but you won't get the final picture. You usually don't get the final picture. They're usually doing fine graphics work or color or what have. How many split shots there are? Yes. So many split shots, which is one take of one person here kind of attached to the take of another person there. So when they're talking to each other, you can kind of, it's pretty crazy. So is that our time, or do we have another 5 or 10? We have 10? 10. 10 more minutes. So I would actually like, if you have a mic, can we ask questions of the audience? No sleeping, guys. Who's sleeping? All right, cool. All right, who's got a question? Can you grab the guy in the green jacket right here? Here we go. What's your question?
Hello? So I was wondering, you had mentioned about how when you worked on Reacher, there was a couple of the people you worked with went on to direct or write their own shows, and they gave you some work afterward. Did you ask them for the work, or did they call you 5-10 years later remembering that you worked with them on Reacher and then give you the work? So was it like you requested the gig in the economy, or was it thrown back to you and that was just kind of the way it was?
Yeah, actually, it was on Prison Break, and that was about 20 years ago. And just over the years, once the producer that had his office next to me on Prison Break is now my showrunner on Reacher now. But just over the years, a lot of them, as they got their shows on, they were like, post-production, let's call up Agatha. So, and you know, but it was also like a two-way street. I'd also reach out and say, hey, I just read that you got a show greenlit. Are you looking for somebody to run post?
That makes sense. Sorry for messing up the...
Oh, no, that's it.
And that's a fabulous question. That's a fabulous question. I would say networking goes in every direction it can. Wouldn't you say? Yeah.
I think one thing that maybe is not clear to everyone here is that we're all freelance. So we are not employed by a studio. We get paid eventually by a studio, but we're all freelance. When our jobs are over, we look for our next job.
Or while our shows are going on, we're looking for the next job.
Yes.
Yeah. It's basically like a piece of art that gets commissioned, like a show gets commissioned. It's its own bespoke thing, which is the lovely thing about it, if you ask me.
That's a nice way to put it, Karol.
You know?
Yeah.
You know? Like a sculpture. Yeah. Is there another question, perhaps? Oh,
Yeah,
I
right
see a
here.
hand right here. Or somebody has a mic. I don't see it.
Yeah, right here.
It is you. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. What's happening?
So I have a question for all of you. What's all of your favorite shows or film you guys have all worked on?
I'll take that one. I've done a couple Tarantino movies. I did Inglourious Bastards and Django Unchained, and working with Quentin is a trip because that guy is an encyclopedia of movies. He knows more. He's forgotten more movies than any of us in this room have ever watched in our entire lives, and he knows everything about every movie. He takes a lot of things from movies that he loves and puts them in his movies. So, and that's like, for me, amazing. Just being around the guy was amazing.
How about you, Dorian?
I would have to say I worked on a series for HBO called Enlightened, and the writer, creator, showrunner, and director of most of the episodes was Mike White. And this is, I don't know, we're talking maybe 10 or more years ago. And Mike White it was a difficult experience for him with this show, which I don't know if any of you have seen. It's a great little series featuring Laura Dern in the main character role. And then Mike White went on to do White Lotus with HBO, and we all know what a huge success White Lotus has been. So to see, but what he asked for when he did White Lotus was complete control. He wanted to write every episode, direct every episode, and not have any interference from any other creative. So, and I think that really proved to be his, what led to the success of White Lotus is his own particular vision. So he's been amply rewarded for having that persistence.
Mine is 2. As far as working with people, it was Prison Break. That was a really special one. As far as the content, I did a show called The Loudest Voice, which was, it was about the head of Fox back in the day. And the actor who played him was Russell Crowe, who was Maximus in the original Gladiator. And he was like my crush back then. So to be able to work with him, and then also The Loudest Voice also did some episodes that tackled the very day of 9/11, and so to have to go through and look at actual news footage of that day to recreate how it was like for New York was a really, that actually made me cry because it then became so real. So to be able to put that on screen was pretty cool.
How about you, Karol?
It's hard to pick a baby, isn't it? I really liked Loki because Loki was actually a very challenging project because you had to innovate off existing IP that was very well known. But I was very satisfied with the results. I also really liked a show that I worked on that was based off a story by Cheryl Strayed called Tiny Beautiful Things. I thought that was a really exceptional piece. And then most recently, I started in DC, and I started on political ads. Like, I didn't start on the sexy stuff, guys. So, you do what you got to do. And I moved to documentaries, and I worked in DC, which is actually the capital of the world for charities and documentaries. And I worked on this beautiful show recently called Say Nothing, and it won a Peabody, which felt like it was heard by all the people I grew up with in DC, because that's really an award that they really push for in journalism. And this was a scripted limited series. It's a beautiful project. It's out now. But it was really lovely to have that feeling of, that's awesome. I was able to give back to the world making one of these kind of dramas. I'm saying, drama for good. Yeah. I think we have time for maybe one quick question, and then I think you guys are released into the universe. Is that right? So one more.
Hello?
What do we have? I feel like I'm going to hear a voice
Hello?
on the microphone.
Oh,
there
wow.
it is. Hey. All right, what do you got?
When you first entered the film industry, what kind of environment greeted you guys, and how did that environment better or worsen during your time working there?
For me, I started off, when I first got to LA, I worked for a little shop that the guy was running out of some cutting rooms at Universal. And so I got my first taste of being on a studio lot. And he was very busy at the time doing, episodic television and low budget features. And so it was, there was a lot of work at the time. And so, I felt very fortunate to be able to kind of get in the union, get my chops together, meet a lot of people, be on a studio lot. And so for me, it was a great environment to be initially in the beginning. But obviously things change over time. So we're in a much different time right now with everything that's going on, with all the strife in our industry. But I think that'll end up working itself out eventually. And then, as Dorian was saying, AI is going to be a thing that's going to hit us all at some point. Nobody's going to be able to dodge it. So, it was great, but things change over time.
I would say that the thing that has changed the most since I've been started in the business, is that, when I started, I was often the only female in an editing room. So I've worked in picture editing with crews in the early days, all men and all white men. And I think that there's been an incredible push that has been somewhat successful in really changing that dynamic, even though our guild, the three of us are all in the same guild, is still only 25% women. And the other part of that equation is there are very few people of color in our guild in New York and also in LA, and that has also started to shift. So our guild and the American Cinema Editors really is making considerable effort with people of color, BIPOC, women, to change the ratio, so to speak, of who's represented and who's working in the business.
The Motion Picture Academy is doing the same thing. Yes. Big push.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.